Hello and welcome to Fictional Crimes. I'm your host, Audrey Rupert, and with me today is my guest, Hannah Ziegelski.
Hello.
And we are both law students at King's College London. So the fictional crime we're going to be discussing today happens in Game of Thrones. And the main question we're going to be discussing today is whether or not the death of Ramsay Bolton, who, as you may recall, is Sansa Stark's husband, is considered a murder, or whether it would be manslaughter. So let's get right into it. Hannah, what is it that you need to establish any crime?
To establish any crime, you need three separate elements. First, the actus reus.
So the actus reus is the criminal act itself. So in murder, that would be, say, causing death.
Exactly. And the second one would be the mens rea.
That's the mental element, so it's the mental state that you need. And we'll get into that more later, but essentially for murder, that would be intending to kill someone, as opposed to, say, accidentally killing them.
So yes, and once you have established these two elements, you need to look whether there is a defense, and if not, then there is a crime.
Right, and if you have a defense, so for example, let's say Sansa got convicted of murder, a defense might be able to reduce the charge to manslaughter. So let's look at the actus reus of murder first. The actus reus of murder is the unlawful killing of another person during the Queen's peace, and we're going to go into what each of these words means in a minute here. So let's start with unlawful. Hannah, what does it mean for a killing to be unlawful?
Well, in essence, it means that there is no justification for your act. The most common example would be self-defense, so if you act in defending yourself and killing somebody, for example.
That would be a lawful killing, and I think that we can say for pretty definitively here that Sansa did not act in self-defense as she tied Ramsay up and put him in a cell with a bunch of hungry dogs, so we can rule that one out. So the killing is indeed unlawful. So let's talk about the second element, killing. Now, a lot of viewers might wonder whether Sansa actually killed Ramsay because she didn't kill him with her own hands. She put him in a pit of hungry dogs and allowed them to eat him. So, did she actually kill him? This is where we get into an issue called causation.
So the basic question we ask for causation is, did she actually cause Ramsay's death? And there are two types of causation that have to be established. The first one is factual causation.
Now, the test for factual causation is called the but-for test. So essentially, if but for Sansa's actions, would Ramsay have died in the way that he did? And the main case you want to cite here is called Arryn White. Now, in this case, a man tried to poison his mother, but she died of an unrelated heart attack when he gave her the poison. So he actually wasn't guilty of her murder because his actions didn't cause her death. Now, in Sansa's case, we can definitively say that if but for her actions, Ramsay would not have died, so she has satisfied that part of the test.
So the second type of causation that needs to be established is legal causation, and this basically entails that you have to show that her actions were operating and substantial at the time of his death. And there's a lot of complicated case law on this, but to make it simple, it just means that she contributed to his death more than minimally.
Well, the dogs mauling Ramsay to death definitely contributed more than minimally to his death, so we can say that Sansa has satisfied both factual and legal elements of causation, and she did in fact kill him. So that element of actus reus has been satisfied. The next part's pretty simple. Did she kill a person? Now, I know we could argue that Ramsay isn't really a person, but legally speaking, Hannah, what are the two types of things that are not people?
So the first type would be a fetus, for example, and the second type basically means that she did not stab a person that was already dead.
Yep, so that's simple. Fulfilled. Now this next part is interesting, the Queen's peace. Essentially this just means that it's not a wartime killing, because if it's a wartime killing, then a whole new set of rules applies. So is this the Queen's peace? Well, first of all, there's a king at the moment, Tommen, so it's not the Queen's peace. Safe to say there is a war going on. In the series, Sansa used to be the daughter of the Lord of the North, who was legally subservient to the king, but the current king's brother, King Justin Bieber, murdered her father, so now she's actually married to the current legally recognized Lord of the North, who is subservient to the king. However, if you remember the amazing episode Battle of the Bastards, her half-brother, or is it her brother? Who knows? Comes in and captures Ramsay and essentially makes him a prisoner of war. So I guess this opens up the whole question of, can you kill prisoners of war? Probably not. Geneva Conventions, but that's just way too complicated. So for the sake of this video and this exercise, we're just going to assume that this requirement has been fulfilled. So the actus reus has been fulfilled, which simply means that Sansa has committed the unlawful act of killing Ramsay. The next step would be mens rea.
So the mens rea is the mental element of any crime, and for murder it is intent to kill or cause grievous bodily harm. And in this case we can really definitively say that she did want to kill him, like
And
she
we're
really
all
wanted.
very happy that she did, just saying. Now, unfortunately for Sansa, she's fulfilled both the actus and mens rea of murder, so she is guilty of murder, but is there a defense? Because if she has a defense, she might be able to reduce her murder charge to manslaughter, in this case, voluntary manslaughter.
So for murder the sentence would be a mandatory life sentence.
There is no death penalty in the UK, sorry fellow Americans.
Yeah, sorry Donald Trump. For voluntary manslaughter, however, it is discretionary. That means that it's up for the court to decide whether to give her a life sentence or less.
Now, a couple of common defenses that are often used are self-defense and loss of control, but neither of those things apply here, so we're not going to talk about them. The one defense Sansa might be able to rely on is called diminished responsibility, and it has 4 elements. Now, apologies for the legalese here, but those 4 requirements are basically 1. Sansa suffering from an abnormality of mental functioning. 2. The abnormality of mental functioning was caused by a recognized medical condition. 3. As a result of that abnormality, she has difficulty understanding the nature of her conduct, forming a rational judgment, exercising self-control, or was substantially impaired. And lastly, that impairment had to be a significant contributor. Now, not to insult Sansa and say she has a mental problem, she's clearly a very strong character, but Ramsay has done a lot of horrible things to Sansa which we're not going to illustrate here. And it's possible she might be able to claim something called the battered woman syndrome.
So, if an expert medical witness is able to diagnose Sansa with a medical condition that she might have developed as a result of the abuse she has experienced, she could actually use that to fulfill all of the requirements of diminished responsibility.
There are cases such as Walia and Thornton where women have used this defense successfully to reduce their murder charge to voluntary manslaughter, so it's possible, if Sansa is able to demonstrate all these elements, that she'll be convicted of manslaughter instead of murder. But TBH, for all of us who've watched the show, we know that Sansa probably did this out of a calculated desire for revenge, and not because she snapped due to a mental illness, so most likely she is guilty of murder, but who knows, maybe she could fool the jury or something. Well, that's all for today. Again, my name is Audrey Rupert, I'm your host of Fictional Crimes, and I do an LLB program at King's College London.
And I'm Hannah Zgelski, and I'm doing a double degree in English and German law at King's College currently. And also, I'm kind of doubting Audrey's judgment right now because whatever she's drawing, it does not really look like me. No, it does not. Like, my hair is definitely not that long.
How am I supposed to make it shorter?
I don't know.
We are both law students at King's College London. So goodbye for now, subscribe, and leave suggestions for which crimes we should cover in the suggestion box below.